Welcome to the Recruiter Startup Podcast. My name's Dualta, and in this podcast series, I will be speaking to investors, advisors, and recruitment entrepreneurs who are based all over the world, and we'll be discussing how to set up, scale, and operate a world-class recruitment company. Today, we're talking to Ibraheem Rahman. He is a young chap from Slough in London. And he's gone out on his own over the last year after having a few years postgraduate experience working in Roc Search, GCS, and Ramtech Recruitment Limited. And we had a great chat about his journey, his thoughts on recruitment, on the market, on how he left Roc Search and joined GCS, and maybe what the differences were between those two companies. He identified specifically that Roc Search weren't the sharpest dressers compared to GCS. Keen to know what you all think about that. But we had a bit of banter about all of that. And yeah, we just had a really good conversation. And another example of a young man who's not afraid to do a few years experience and just go, do you know what? I can actually set up this by myself. All the tools, all the knowledge is there. I don't need to work for a big company. And he went out and he's done it. He's done his first year successfully, and he is projecting well for the future. So I hope you all enjoy it. Ibraheem Rahman, how are you doing? That's a good, strong name you have there, isn't it?
Peculiar. Not many Ibrahims in the recruitment industry, eh?
Yeah, I know. You sound like you could be a prophet or something.
No, I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah, well, listen, you're here to give us a bit of preaching, so I'm going to listen. But look, thank you for coming on the podcast. I always like to get a young entrepreneur on because, you know, it's one thing to be like in your 50s and have a bit of cash but when you're a young guy and you just put yourself out there and you put it all on the line, they're the type of stories I enjoy.
I appreciate the custom.
All right, so you came, you reached out to me because a friend of yours suggested about the show, so that was great to hear.
Yeah, good few. I was surprised at how many actually sort of, I was connected to you on LinkedIn for a couple of years at least. And he reached out to me and said, did you hear these podcasts? They're pretty amazing, some of the stories on there. And I thought, wait, what are you talking about? And he said, look, half the office tune into it. You need to start having a look at his posts. And I thought, oh, fair enough. Started sort of listening in, and here we are today.
Awesome. Shout out to the GCS office there.
Yeah, that is a GCS office.
There will be a headhunting message coming towards you very shortly.
Very shortly.
Oh God. I have bills to pay, mate. I can't just be pretending I'm Joe Rogan all day. You know?
Surely you can't.
I can't. So here's the crack. We just reached 50,000 downloads. How cool is that?
That's brilliant. That's amazing.
I know, buzzing about that.
And it feels like it's just growing and growing and growing.
Yeah. So the next piece now is to get good at the video bit and start doing live podcasts. And LinkedIn are going to introduce LinkedIn Live very soon. Mm-hmm. So everything that we do as recruiters over the next 10 years, you'll find that like we'll start documenting 5% of what we do. Then it'll be 10. Before you know it, will be our own media channels, all of us, and our job will be to promote the people that we engage with. That's where I see it all going.
Exactly. It's definitely changing the dynamics of LinkedIn and how people are using it as well.
Well, your generation, I'm sure, has a different perspective on the way it's turning, because you said you're 27, is that right?
28.
You're 28. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm 35. So when I wasn't, like, the internet wasn't always there for me when I was younger. But like, do you even remember a time without the internet?
Not really. My
Yeah.
childhood was the internet.
So that's so like you're that first generation of entrepreneurs that like they've been just in the internet age the whole time. So I think that your generation will be quicker to adapt to all the changes that are happening out there than say somebody who is used to setting up a call center,
Mm.
getting a bunch of kids in a room and saying go make 100 calls. But let's jump into where you got into recruitment.
Yeah, of course.
So you
So
did a degree first, right?
yeah, so I went to the University of Bradford. Don't ask me why. I simply wanted to get out of London and
You're
far away.
you're not from Bradford, right?
No, 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 not at all. I was born.
Mate, why would anybody choose to go to Bradford?
I get that question all the time, and I actually was born and raised in South London, Kingston area, and really nice area. You know, I was in London most of the time of my teens, and I just really wanted to get out and explore because when
Yeah,
university was sort of sold to me as my dad was really interested in sort of pushing me into university. Thankfully, he's not one of them Asian fathers that said you have to be a doctor, full stop.
yeah.
Um, but he thought, look, you know, at least crack university. And I thought, yeah, okay. He convinced me in the end, and I thought, yeah, let's go for it. And I just wanted to really have a life experience, and I thought, let me get as far as possible somewhere that I'm not actually going to want to live. Um, but
Eh,
I should have researched a lot more in detail, though,
yeah.
saying that.
I can relate to you because I did a year in Huddersfield. I finished off my degree there. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, I mean Huddersfield is kind of like the rich cousin of Bradford,
Very much so.
but they're both a poor family.
They both are. We used to think Huddersfield's the posh part.
Yeah, Huddersfield doesn't get called that very often, you know. Uh, but that's funny. Asian families and Irish families are quite similar like that. Um, although when you grow up in an Irish family in the countryside, it's either like get a trade or go to university. There's nothing in between,
Mm.
and you're really driven towards that. The so you said your father wasn't pushing you towards being a doctor, but
No, thankfully.
is he second generation in England, or did he come straight
He
over?
came. So my dad, when I get asked this all the time, who's your role model? And I don't look further past my own father. I mean, he inspired me massively. Came to this country when he was in his teens from
Mm,
Pakistan. Lost his own father at the tender age of 11. He was supporting the whole household at that age.
wow.
At the same time, was washing dishes at Bath Road, where Heathrow Airport is. Bath Road, all the hotels over there, as well as studying. End of the day, today he's made it to be a chartered accountant. He works in quality assurance, tax as well at times. He's done extremely well for himself, and it's a true success story. Um, whilst
Is he your accountant now?
no, 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 he's not my accountant now. No, I'm lucky enough to have my wife as a chartered accountant as well.
Very good, very good.
So, but he does always advise me in life in general. I suppose in business, he's a very thorough man that knows his stuff. So in terms of, I'd call him a mentor.
Mm.
Definitely so. He sort of gives me that drive and that second sort of opinion that really does count at times.
So you've studied business economics.
Correct.
Your wife's a chartered accountant. Your
Hmm.
father is a chartered accountant.
Hmm.
Numbers must be something, and numbers, metrics, and measuring things
Hmm.
must be something that's always been innate in you.
Correct. It has always been. It's not been my, if I'm my own biggest critique. I always critique myself, and I suppose when I do, a SWOT analysis on myself, strength wise, I would say I'm more of a people's person. You could stick me in a pub and I'll get to know everyone in that with it. By the end of the night, and everyone would have my business cards. But in terms of numbers wise, although I'm pretty decent at it, it's not my passion, I suppose, because in my teens, again, I used to see my dad working with Excel spreadsheets with numbers galore on it. And I think that kind of put me off the idea of getting into accountancy myself. I've never been sort of a desk man, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I did. So I did business on my undergrad and I did marketing on my postgrad, and I was never a very good student, to be honest. I just kind of eventually got there. But I definitely thought, like, halfway through it, I have no interest in economics. I love the story of economics.
Mm-hmm.
I love how different countries use different systems, but I hate the actual breakdown in the analysis and all of that. And
in
the
terms of micro and macroeconomics.
Yeah, I probably enjoy talking about macroeconomics and how the different systems work and all the rest, but I wouldn't have a clue on how to analyze the data and how to tell that story. And then the accountancy side, like, oh god, that bores me to tears. But I'm just more of a creative kind of person, you know. So I went into that marketing field, and I never actually got into marketing. But now it's funny, years later, I'm kind of, through this recruitment crack, kind of becoming more of a marketeer than an actual recruiter.
Exactly. I was going to say, in your day-to-day life now, I suppose marketing is somewhat of a forefront.
It's probably 80% of what I'm doing. You know, so next Wednesday I'm flying to New York, and we've hired a videographer to come around with us to meet 8 clients and a few people we've placed and a few other industry people that we know in New York. And we're going to document what that experience is for people out there. And then we're going to create a docu-series on it. And then we're going to pump that through Facebook ads and try and learn all the things that I've learned on the podcast throughout the year. And just I'm launching our new branding and our new website all next week as well. So lots
a lot to come then, eh?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, you know. I'm definitely a bit frustrated with just doing Rec to Rec and just doing what we do in our business. And the podcast has given me an avenue to really
explore different things. Yeah.
People, and each time I get to, oh, we're not very good at that. So it leads me to going, okay, who's the expert? Let's find it. Okay, let's copy that process. Let's make that happen. How much is this going to cost? So
exactly.
Walk me through those early days in recruitment. Did you do a bit of recruitment when you were?
Sorry, I think you're cutting out here. Can
you hear me now?
That's better.
So walk me through those early days. Were you doing a bit of recruitment?
Yes,
in
correct.
University?
So I was on my course. I had this young chap. His dad owned a small recruitment agency, independently owned, and he sort of said to me, "Oh, how do you fancy earning a few, sort of extra bucks working around the corner from the university site?" And I said, "Doing what?" He didn't really explain to me, recruitment as a whole. He just said, literally, you call people, see if they're fit for a job, and put it forward to the consultant, and he'll take it on from there. And I thought that's not too difficult. I said, no problem at all. So I kind of dived right into it as a resourcer. And I didn't think of the bigger picture in terms of, I never would have thought that's something I would do as a full-time job when I got back home. But I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy it, and I picked up some crucial skills from them. Again, I was quite kind of hidden away from the bigger picture because I would start arguing my commission structures, etc., where it was non-existent at the time. They just paid me a basic salary, and I think that's all. But
£5 an hour.
It was about $6.50 an hour, I believe. But it got me by.
Yeah, take you down for a few pints.
Exactly, and that's about it. But at the end,
what a valuable experience to get you in
university. Yeah, it was definitely valuable. I learned a lot of lessons. Crucial lessons. It was a good time. I don't regret it. It was actually one of the best decisions I made.
Yeah. So you worked for them throughout your degree, more or less, until
Yeah,
you probably
I,
had to
I
do some
literally
exams.
got offered it. After Freshers Week? This is a couple of months after Freshers Week. And they said, look, come in straight away. And they said, look, we're going to keep you here for a week. If it doesn't work out, fair enough. If it does work out, please stay on. You know, we've got a lot of roles, a lot of jobs, etc. And I enjoyed it after that week, and they were very happy and pleased with me. And you know, I ended up staying on for 3 years. Um,
Wow.
obviously not the gaps I used to look forward to and coming back home, etc. When university term sort of closed. But as soon as I was back in Bradford, I was back in work.
Very good. Um, so you got a bit of a foundation there, but I think it's fair to say you probably got your real start at Roc Search after uni,
Correct.
isn't that
And
right?
you know, it was amazing. One thing I'd like to say about Roc Search, amazing training. I mean, the way
They're a beast of a
very,
company,
very
aren't they?
good company as well. And yeah, they're a beast of a
Yeah.
company. I mean, the way I applied through it was through an academy called Raw Talent, who put you for, now I don't believe they exist anymore, but they used to accumulate CVs. They're a bit of a rec to rec, and set up
Mm.
sort of days where they'd invite 80 odd people who have applied for trainee recruitment consultant roles. They hired out in
Yeah.
Reading, Majesty Stadium, one of the halls over there. And we kind of had, it was a bit of an apprentice sort of task. It was about 80 of us in a room. Connor, the MD of Roc Search there, a few other staff members.
Yeah, I've dealt with
Yeah,
Connor.
great
Yeah.
guy, great guy. I've got a lot of time for him. But, you know, it was one of them things where it was a apprentice style task set up. And at the end of it, three of us got hired. So it was pretty brutal, but I'm glad they didn't make it easy. They knew.
They're busy launching their US
Hmm.
project now. They're one of the many UK companies that are over there. Tell me this. So you were in Roc Search. How intense was that first three
Oh
months of
gosh,
working there?
probably the most difficult in recruitment in general. It made me think. You know, do I want this job? Do I want this career? In fact, it wasn't necessarily a job I was thinking about. I was thinking about the bigger picture.
Mm.
And
when you went in,
hmm.
right? Because were you walking in like thinking, I've done this
Yeah,
for a few
literally.
years. I'm going to have a head start in these guys. Like I mean, I know this, and then did you
I
just
did
get
get
punched in
punched
the
in the face
face?
pretty bad. I had a black eye at the same time as well. It was it was brutal. It was a reality check for me, really, because I did in my head think I'm going to be a step ahead of everyone else who's joining this academy
Mm.
at the same time anyway. Um, and I was very confident as an individual, and I'd always present myself well. And I thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to crack this. As soon as what I still value and appreciate what Roc Search done is for every trainee that joined them, they had a bespoke program that you'd go through, a training program, structured one, very well structured, a mixture of one-to-one training as well as sort of a class training exercise. But that kind of opened my eyes and made me understand the world of recruitment a bit better.
Yeah. What type of stuff did they go through in the training with you?
I
Can you
can.
even remember, or have you
Yeah,
blanked
no,
that
I
out of your
can.
mind?
It was more starting with cold calling techniques, you know, questioning techniques, open questions, closed questions, gauging with it was a full 360. So I was gauging how to gauge with new clients, how to maintain relationships with existing clients, sourcing CVs, um, just holding a basic communication, you know, on the phone with candidates that might be in a rush, for example, in different scenarios, handling objections. So it was literally the whole sort of 360 cycle, conducting meetings, pitching business. So it was literally, it gave you a full, thorough 360 cycle. And at the end of it, it wasn't, oh, you've gone through training, goodbye, get on with it. It was, you've gone through the training, now let us test you. And they actually put us through,
Yeah.
which really seemed, I know it's a bit surreal. It won't be your own manager doing the testing, it'll be another team's manager, but it would be pretty brutal. They'd literally, they wouldn't let you off easy, put it that way. I think they had some fun in doing so
Yeah.
as well at the same time. They must see us. They must. seen us as nervous kids that needed to sort of get the reality check on what they're getting into.
Yeah, some of those things can be a bit boiler room, and people say that negatively, but
No, it made me who I am today. So
yeah. Yeah. How long was it before you had the recruitment dreams? And I don't mean like ambitions. I mean, you're lying in bed at night, and there's recruitment stuff flying around in your head, and you're dreaming about a candidate and a client, and it's going wrong. And did that happen during the training period?
Yeah, because during my training period, I was actually chucked to work with a senior consultant. I was sort of aiding her with sort of resourcing candidates and sort of dealing with some clients myself as well. And I used to get very emotional at times, not in terms of physically showing my emotion, but in my head, it would literally be like, putting a puzzle together, thinking, oh gosh, I got this candidate, I got that candidate going in. The probability of one of them getting the job, in my own head, I'm working this out, is going to be X amount. They're going through these phases, and I just realized later on, don't do that. You're not doing yourself any favors whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't know if it's tough, right? I find with my own business now, I've outsourced is the wrong word. My team handle the scheduling of interviews, and that way my anxiety towards all the processes and all the rest is a lot lower. But I remember when I would be doing everything. I'd be flicking a resume out there, 8 people come back, go, hey, this guy's great, let's make it happen. Then the candidate would come back to me and say, actually, can't do those times. So then I'd have to go, okay, let's reschedule that. Then it'd be rescheduling it all, and then I'd get it all sorted, and then the candidate would go, sorry, I know I said it was okay, but another Rector X already presented me. And so something always happens in when you're doing a process with recruiters. And as soon as I got rid of that bit, my life was so much better. But at the very start, whether you're running your own business or you're starting out in recruitment, you're so emotionally invested in that process, and in the marginal gains of, if I do this, will that affect the outcome? If it affects the outcome, does it affect it enough to get the result? And you can just get obsessed and stressed.
Exactly. This thing of not so much so as having dreams about it, but I'd go home, and although that phrase of don't take work home with you, sort of switch off, that just wasn't existent. I mean, I used to come back and in my head think, for tomorrow I need to do this, that, make a list. And then be so organized with things like, right, these candidates, I put them forward for these jobs, I need to put them forward for the other places as well, so the probability of them taking one of them is higher. And I remember, my friends, etc., everyone used to see a change in me, and they used to say to me, gosh, it seems like you're stressed out almost. Do you actually enjoy your job? And it was almost like an addiction. I actually enjoyed the buzz of it, the excitement of it. There's only so much I used to think I could control every single aspect in recruitment. When I got into it, I thought that's what a good recruiter is, someone who can control as much as physically possible in the process. But I sort of soon learned that there's a lot of things that are not in someone's hands.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I used to be, when I was an IT recruiter, I was very focused on that control piece. And I think a lot of the traditional training is based around that. The longer I'm in it, I'm kind of more focused on the whole ecosystem. Like, how can we get our name out there? How can we get more people? Like, are we working with the best clients? Because if we are, then everything else will take care of itself, because we'll have the best options. And then if we have the best people going to the best options, then that's fine. That's kind of where I've changed a little bit. Where I think when I started, I was so focused on filling a job, and just
exactly, because notoriously when I got into recruitment, I realized very quickly basic salaries were extremely low. Looking around me, this is not just at any particular company. I'm not singling out anyone here, but in general, the rule of thumb was extremely low basic salaries, entry level. I'm talking, and then it was all you were working for was commission, which put more pressure on yourself because you thought that's where my main bread and butter is coming from there, and that put more stress on you. Um,
So I wasn't under that type of pressure, because I started in Australia, and I was on a nice basic.
well,
We had
lucky you.
we had a living away from home allowance,
Gosh.
which basically covered our rent at the time, and then in a boom market where, I got the best desk, I got the best team, I probably worked for the best company, like literally everything aligned. I would say nothing aligned in my career until I was 27 and I got into recruitment. So perhaps the universe was just giving me a shot.
Perhaps it does seem like it was lined up quite well for you.
It was, when I look now, and I actually thought this at the time, it would have been harder to fail than succeed in it. But yet it didn't stop plenty of others from failing. So
yeah, I suppose it's not for. I've once had a director of one of the companies I work for say to me, I would never ever choose or be a recruiter's best mate. It just doesn't happen. I thought, this is bizarre. You've owned this agency for donkeys of years, pretty successful agency as well, and that strikes me. And he said, you'll realise what I'm saying. He said it's not for everyone, and that kind of made sense to me a couple of years down the line. I thought to me, it does take a certain knack of character to do well in this industry, or to succeed. You have to be. He did say once to me, you have to be made of slightly thicker skin than the rest, and that really did sort of resonate with me later on in my career. I thought, yeah, I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, the thick skin's interesting. I think at the start that means like you're able to handle rejection and sales rejection, but as you grow as a business and as in your market, that happens less and less. Then the thick skin's about dealing with the disappointment of people changing their mind or letting you down, and then it's about your own team members letting you down or not working as hard as you need them to work, or as to your so that it's that thick skin just evolves over time. But I notice a lot of traits. A lot of my best mates are recruiters, and they're all quite obsessive. They're all quite full on. They're very different personalities, but like my mum said my wedding was like a salesman convention. so like there's all these charming guys that kind of look like they used to play football or something, and it's
I can imagine.
Yeah, and then there was all the guys that I used to be in working bars with. They all look completely different. But the same strand of that nervous energy, obsessive kind of character, which is quite common in the amount of wrongings.
You're
in the
definitely
industry.
right in saying that.
So talk to me about Reading. Hey, the amount of recruitment firms based in Reading is freaky. Most of my Rec Direct stuff's abroad, but I would say we've probably signed terms with most of the people who they actually have a headquarters in Reading over the years. But I've never really done a tremendous amount of work there or invested time there. I can imagine, like you went from Roc to GCS. Was there any differences in the way those two companies operated? Like that seems like a very sideways
massively. Personally, in culture was the main difference. I mean, me being a Muslim, for me, I don't drink alcohol. So for me, the culture at Roc was very good for the young crowd. But at the time, I got married. I got married whilst I was at Roc Search, and for me, it was, although a young chap, all the other youngsters at my age were still enjoying their partying and sort of not as serious in life as me. And And I looked around me and I thought the culture's not quite suiting what I'm after. Great for some people, and I understand why the model is brilliant and it works, very well with a certain niche, especially at entry level. However, it wasn't for me at the time, and I thought, no, my life's getting a bit more serious. Um, I feel like I need to sort of, in terms of at least culture and atmosphere wise, I needed a different move, a different vibe, perhaps more toned down culture, and hence GCS.
Is there a cultural difference there? What would you?
So
what would
with
you
Roc
identify?
Search is vibrant, work hard, play hard ethic, and that's literally. I know everyone says that, and it's a bit of a cliche, but it is literally what they live by. They work extremely hard, and they enjoy as much on the leisurely side of things. So what I mean by that, just to give examples, pretty much every day, religiously, the team or most members of a team would say, let's go out to the local pub, let's go out for even a meal. They were just very outgoing social guys and girls. And, it was more of a very loud office environment, even though it was an open floor plan office. It was extremely loud. You could hear from the other end of the room, very buzzing office. And with GCS, it was more so sharper suits, I'd say. I'm gonna get killed for saying this, but the people were dressed immaculately well.
So they dress better. TCS are
In
better
my
dressers
opinion,
than
yes,
Roc
correct.
Search, is what you're saying.
From what I saw, anyway. I don't know what it's like now, but
Yeah.
from what I saw, I saw a lot more expensive suits at GCS.
But they're both scalable companies that are based on S3 principles. So, like, GCS is by no means a boutique. So did it just have a few softer edges, and maybe, like, was there any difference in in the way that they went about recruitment, or was it just that they were just a little less intense than Roc Search?
I wouldn't say necessarily it was more about intensity. It was more in terms of their style of recruitment. I suppose it worked on as a general principle of thumb. Both companies had core values that they sort of stood by. They weren't one of these agencies that thought elsewise. They had a vision which was led by both very good directors, in my opinion, that had a clear vision and sort of portrayed that down from the receptionist all the way up to the senior managers in the business and associate directors. Everyone had the same.
What was that? Do more. Better?
No, it was more about passion and don't think about because it very easily in recruitment ethics come into question, in my opinion. Anyway, a lot of the times you find yourself I've found myself in railroads where you think this is unethical or not ethical, but the situation sort of it's like someone's dangling a carrot in your face. And what I mean by that is you'd be working with I'd famously remember the first time I asked the question. I was at GCS, and at the time I was signed up with I won a massive client in the BMS industry anyway, leading client, and I was so pleased with it. I thought it was going great, made a good few placements with them, and lo and behold, I got this other role in from another company, and they gave me a very obscure location to find an engineer. Literally, I don't know, 10 minutes later, I get an email from an engineer, who I didn't know at the time, very good CV. And it was written there that he's currently working for a client I was actually working with. So it was a first time situation that actually happened to me at the time. And I remember going up to my manager and saying, what do I do here? Because I've got loyalties.
Well, what does your term say?
Terms didn't actually specify that at all.
Well, then you work with them. That's what you do. Like, this stuff drives me up the wall. Like, if your terms say if they approach you, it's okay, then it's okay. If they're not paying you a retainer, like, this is contingent recruitment. But hey, that's enough of me rambling.
I mean, what my manager did say, though, it kind of opened my eyes. I didn't do that. He said to me, look, you've just about got in with a good relationship with them. You're taking away potentially he's a very senior engineer as well. So you're potentially taking one of their senior engineers. I don't think it's a good idea, mate. Think about the long story. And I've kind of based my business around as ethically as I can as well, and I think that's why I've got a very good name in the industry that I do recruit.
But let's jump into that, because if he's applied to you, he's going to apply somewhere else. He's going regardless. So would like, and why would like, and how, like, I mean, so I would definitely get him to sign something. Say, hey, listen, you need to sign this. Says you approached me, etc. Like,
of course, but then from the flip side of the coin, Dualta, I speak to clients, for example. I'm working with them. You can imagine I'm meeting up with these guys on most of them on a weekly basis, if not every 2 weeks, once every 2 weeks. You're meeting up with them. You're having lunch, dinners, drinks with these guys, and at the end of it, they're thinking, my senior engineer that he reports to me is now leaving. Yet in my face, you've literally taken him away from my back. This is what they think. It's deceitful almost.
Well, okay. Let me flip this again then. So you're having that. So this is the director of engineering that you're dealing with, right? You're having dinner with him, and he says to you, "Hey, I hear there's there might be some changes in my company. I think I'm going to look. Will you represent me to a couple of people in the marketplace? What do you do
in that
then?"
case? Because I've got extreme. If it depends, if I know that person for a day. I've had this scenario before, plenty of times, funny enough. And if I've developed such a relationship with them that we've got a very good understanding, I get on really well with them. In essence, he's my sort of main contact at that company. I've personally represented them. I've not sort of hesitated to do so. On the flip side of things, I know where you're coming from, Dualta. I get your point of view as well. And funny enough, I've got a good few friends of mine who are recruiters, and we sit and debate over this all day long. But that person I've got an existing very good relationship with. There's trust there. There's that element there. Whereas if an engineer who I don't know personally has now,
but say if you've placed that guy then, and then the internal person finds out, oh, listen, you took him out. You lose that as a client in the future. Maybe you might have placed him somewhere else, and maybe they might not be hiring. So at the end of, like, commercially,
I do understand where you're coming from. As I said,
but you're saying is this isn't commercial. This is your own moral compass.
Yeah, this is my own moral compass. It's nothing to do with commercial or thing. If some people would say, I commend you for it. Other people will say you're an idiot. You could potentially. You could potentially win, a lot more business if you didn't do that. But I've always stuck to my guns when it comes to my own sort of values and core beliefs. It served me well. I can't complain whatsoever. It served me extremely well. But then again, because my industry.
I also think though, Ibrahim, that it very much depends on the client. Like, I've got a few that have paid me quite a bit of money over time, and if one of their guys came to me, I wouldn't be able to work with them. But what if it's just somebody I have terms of business with, has never paid any bills? Then, I mean,
perhaps you have to look at it at an individual basis. You must. Yeah, you have to. You can't just.
I think where I'm going here with this is there's no black or white here. Like, you need to kind of review specifically everything within the case, and even somebody who I did business with ages ago, if one of their people came to me, if I'm not doing business with them anymore, no problem. Like, it has to be a current commercial relationship.
Yeah, it has to be somewhere that you're actually physically engaging in business with, not just signing purely terms with. Because any Tom, Dick, and Harry can sign terms. That doesn't mean they get your loyalty or that sort of customer service from yourself. I suppose what's also affected my decision making is the fact that I operate in a very niche market. So everyone knows everyone. It's a very incestuous market, and there's believe it or not, there's under 150 clients in my market, companies, in the UK.
In the UK,
this is not internationally. This is just UK. So if you upset or ruffle feathers of the big top 10 over the years, you're going to have that reputation stain your career, and it's not good. It's not healthy.
So when I look at your
Mm-hmm.
background now, Ibrahim, it screams millennial. You come in, you do a year in one place, you do a year in another, you kind of try your hand at something, and then you go, do you know what? I know enough. I'm going to set up my own business. And I like that. That's not a criticism. I like how young people today are like that. Like before, it would have been like somebody would have to worry about going through the ranks, becoming a director, managing a team, doing all of that. And then they go, okay, now I might approach somebody to partner with me or to get me funded, and then I'll go out. But the world's changed, right? And the opportunities are out there for anybody to go out. And I suppose the one thing you've had is you've seen how big scalable businesses have worked, and you've seen that over two decent companies, and they've given you a niche discipline. Walk me through the thought process of how you set up your recruitment business. How did that day come about?
Okay, so it was very specific. Actually, I still remember it. I mean, I was working as a business manager in my previous role with a company called Remtech, and I used to work, very long hours, travel all over the UK, meeting all of the customers for the company in general. Doesn't have to be specifically my clients. And I sort of questioned the job, and I thought, the travel is becoming a bit, but I was enjoying it. They looked after me very well. And I thought to myself, right, me and my missus, we live in a flat. And I said, I want to purchase a house. That's the next sort of step. And I was putting sort of figures together. And I realized very soon, if I wanted to, which I always wanted to, is keep a portfolio of properties, wanted to keep my flat and purchase a house, I needed about 70, 80 grand, because the stamp duty would be high as well, to be afford to get a house that me and my wife sort of would budget for. And I thought 70, 80 grand in a permanent job, I don't care if you're a surgeon, you could earn 70, 80 plus easily, but saving 70, 80 grand within, a very short space of time, a year, for example, is almost unheard of or very difficult. Not many people do that. And I thought the only way for me to sort of access that sort of funds is sort of business. And then I thought to myself, I'll just speed up the process. Am I competent enough to do this job? I started asking myself and sort of ticked the boxes. Oh, no, I was sure I was competent enough to take, but when you're on a comfy package and you're in that sort of stage in your life where you're well respected in your job, you're looked after extremely well, you've got a comfy package you're on, you're earning good money, you think I'm comfortable and I could see myself progressing really well as well, if I'd stay with them. But then I thought to myself,
I've honestly never been in that position. Well, not that I haven't made good money working for other people, but I've always known it was going to lead me to setting up my own as soon as I had an opportunity.
No, that was always, before I even joined Remtech, it's in the back of my head that I will set up my own agency at one point. That point, though, if I'm honest, I didn't know when. Was that a year away? Was that 2 years away? Was that 3 years away? But now that I set it up, I always think I could have done the same job. I wish I'd set it up earlier. In my head, that's what I always say. I wish I'd done it 2 years earlier, 3 years earlier. But then again, at the same point, the experiences that all these jobs and different companies gave me made me who I am, and I think made me a better recruiter and understand the world of recruitment a lot better as well.
Yeah, and you're still only a young chap, so it's not like you're sitting here in your 50s saying to me, "Oh, I wish I had done this earlier." You're nowhere near 30.
No, I appreciate that, and
it's good, and it's representing well of your generation.
But for me, the main drive was a house. I thought, I want to get a house. Me and my wife, we want to plan for a family, I suppose, and I didn't want to grow that, kids have kids in a flat where there's limited space. It does really well for me and my wife, but a third person, I don't think so.
Yeah, God, man, you're a responsible young
so
man.
I'd like to think I am.
I think I had to be bullied into marriage and kids.
I actually have.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I'm the guy that wants to be in the Wolf of Wall Street. Like, I'm stuck here in a village in the south of England, wondering like, how can I get to LA and have a microphone at the top of an office roaring at young lads,
I
you
can
know?
actually
But
see you doing that.
that it might happen. It might happen. Let's see. So you're a year into your own business. You've got a niche discipline. Look, what's the vision for the
Well,
business?
I'm the first year vision, my goals, etc., my targets. I'm so grateful I actually had the courage to set up the business because it's the best decision I've ever made. And I've ticked both of them goals. So that was year one's plan anyway, from day one. Year two's plan is have another cracking year in business, as good as.
First tax year coming up now,
Yes,
though, buddy.
correct.
You even if you have a good accountant,
It's very
scary
scary.
times when you're
It is
running your own
very
business.
scary. I wasn't quite sure, and that's why I'm lucky enough to have, fortunate enough to have my wife work in tax. But it kind of, because I've got a limited company, I didn't actually understand all the process. You pay company company sort of tax on the company, and then you also corporate tax, shall I say, corporation tax, and then you also pay on the income tax.
Yeah,
And I thought, I'm getting stung
yeah,
twice here. Um,
yeah. And you sound like a responsible fella, so you're probably stuffing a load of the profit into private pensions.
Oh, well, yes, I'm not going to share all my secrets, but yeah, that is an avenue that I've explored.
That's common.
Yeah.
It's common practice for most business owners. Just in terms of your vision. So how are you going to grow this business to not be a job?
That's the next stage. I mean, at present, I am looking actually. I'll be searching. We're about a week early now, but I'm searching for another to take on my first member of staff, which will be a sort of. I'm speaking to a friend of mine. He's a senior recruiter to get him on board. What I want to do, my vision is to tackle different markets, not necessarily just narrow my agency or just specialize within one field or one segment. Although I do.
Why is that?
It broadens your horizons. God forbid something goes wrong in the BMS market, which I don't see it happening. But if it does, a couple of years from today, I don't want to be a one-trick pony. I will have all my eggs in one basket. I trip up and it's game
so
over.
I think the opposite.
You do.
Yeah, big time. Like, I mean, the space that you're in. So if anybody who doesn't understand what he does, BMS, it's basically like if your house is a computer, it's the systems that go into making that happen. So it could be like in America, for example, there's massive government funding being put into this industry because the environmental side of an eco-friendly building is a tax write-off over there, and it's massive area, and it's a boom market. If it was me, I would just double down on what you're doing, just do the one thing, and then broaden out your geographical spectrum.
Yeah, no, I appreciate where you're coming from as well. At the moment, my focus is more towards permanent recruitment. In terms of it makes it easier as a call it a one-man band. You get lump sums. You don't have to worry about using a factoring company to pay contractors, etc. A lot of my industry is you get a good chunk of it on the permanent side anyway. I don't believe the UK has that much of a bigger. It certainly doesn't have a big. The US has a bigger footstep in terms of from a BMS perspective. The government funding, yes, I've read about. In the UK, it was
the US is astronomical.
Of course.
Like the market is just you can't even like it's just compared to the UK, and it's so untapped.
I mean,
but
even within the UK, ever since I've got into recruitment, in the forefront of it, my main competitors as such, there's only, I would say, Dualta, possibly four, possibly even if you're being kind, you'd say 5 leading agencies within my field. So it is, we all know who each other are and we mutually respect each other, but it's a very small industry and there's not an abundance of agencies operating within specializing in this market. There's a lot of Mickey Mouse, recruiters out there which obviously try and tap into it, but they never last long. That,
So new hires coming on board soon,
yep.
hopefully, and you're just going to slowly grow from there. Have you looked into getting an advisor on board? Have you looked into, because it seems to be an area where anybody who gets an advisor earlier, they never regret.
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, I've been approached. Not that I was actively seeking one, but I was actually being. And LinkedIn is one of these funny things where you do sort of open your world to other avenues. But I've been approached by individuals, some of them investors, some of them advisors / investors, business angels as such. And I've actually had some good, promising conversations with a lot of them.
There's 3 that I'd recommend who we've had on this podcast for what you do. I suppose we haven't had John O'Sullivan on yet, but he's been recommended from the guy Safe, who scaled digital gurus. He runs the Elite Leaders program, and then the other one then is James Osborne from the Recruitment Network, where they have a collaboration of best practices from people who'd be further on the journey than you. And then there's probably more individual tailored one like Roy Ripper, who would be able to go look at your plan and go, okay, this and this needs to be changed. Here's the program that you put in place. Here's the course. Okay, this is how you're going to get there. And then they timeline it and work with you. And I think if I could start, I kind of know all this stuff now, but if I was at the start in my first year, it's definitely something I do. Now. Especially if I was in a discipline that I thought I could scale.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, perhaps we can exchange some of these contacts via LinkedIn.
Yeah, sure. I'll introduce you. I'll introduce you. You don't know what you don't know. That's the thing. And when you're running a business and you're running an agency, you're so busy in the business that it's very hard to look holistically on the business and what you can do long term to work yourself out of the business, like Seth Godin would say. Otherwise, you've just created a job for yourself, and that's something I'm always conscious of in my own journey.
You don't work, you don't earn. You need to have that sense that the business, you are the business. Once you're not there, and there is no business.
So how nice will the suits be that the guys in your office are going to wear? Are they going to be way better than Roc Search, or are they going to be just as nice?
Oh, they're going to be immaculate, and I'm sure I'd put some nice incentive schemes in. I think Dualta. I think this industry, recruitment in general, it needs a bit of a shake-up, in my opinion, from a style perspective and from that sort of cultural perspective. A lot of these agencies, a lot of my friends have worked for more experienced than myself. These guys they've worked for plenty of outfits, and a lot of them are they're homogenous. They're very similar, like for like. It's all about profitability, working ethically. And the cultures are very similar in a lot of these offices. Perhaps you, as a rec to rec, would know that there are some agencies out there that are completely different in terms of culture, at least, or the way that they go about their business. But I think our industry definitely needs a shake up on that front.
Yeah, and look, as an entrepreneur, you kind of have to wrestle with the fact that you're probably not as special as you think you are, and that somebody has had best practice out there, and there's a reason why people are doing things a certain way. There are people doing things differently. Like, we've had a few amazing guests on here, And I think a lot of the people who are doing things differently, it's more just down to them using data and social media and actual media to drive content to the right people and to intelligently know when the buying behavior of a candidate or a client is going to happen without calling them. So then you can make the call on a more educated basis. And companies who are embracing that are definitely a step ahead, because what they're doing is they're laying the foundations for their recruiters to go from doing one placement a month, which seems to be what a lot of the major firms are doing at the moment, to being able to do 3, which is where you really want your recruiters to be. And that's where I see it, rather than saying, oh, we're more fun or we dress better. Like, all that stuff's just
Yeah,
window
that is
dressing bullshit.
window dressing. That's not. It does add some final. Things like incentives. I mean, I don't know if you must be aware of many companies doing the same thing, holiday incentives, etc. I haven't seen, personally, I haven't worked for a company that's incentives are suited better to what you want as an individual, not what in general people would want. Little things like that, they do make a difference as well, in terms of, from a drive point of view, and incentivizing the employees' point of view. Um, and things like what you're saying in terms of getting ahead of the curve, the competition, doing things differently. Of course, that's going to have a much bigger impact. That's not all the window dressing stuff. That's getting ahead of the curve and actually being innovative in an industry that needs a bit of a shake up on that front.
Ibrahim, if we do this again in 2 years' time, what's going to have changed? Where are you going to be? What size are you going to be?
If we do this again in 2 years' time,
how nice is the suit you're going to wear?
It's going to be, well, I'm wearing quite nice suits at the moment, but
bet you are.
We could say my company size is it's not just about headcount. I see it as profitability, not just turnover, specifically focusing on profitability. It's not about headcount. I don't agree with people saying, I'll have 5 members of staff by then. Yeah, but you might not be making as much profit as you're making as a one-man band. So it's nothing to do with numbers. Profitability wise, I'd be more than happy with I'll quadruple the size of what I'm currently doing. So that is my vision. I've got it laid out, and it's a realistic goal. Again, I don't like setting unreasonable or unrealistic tasks or goals. You have to do things one step at a time.
Smooth dresser, smooth talker. Good man, Ibrahim. Thanks. I
appreciate your time. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. Take care, Dualta.
Well, a massive thank you to Ibrahim for coming on the podcast. And it sounds like he's got a good little business there. And, when somebody's at that stage, I know I did tell him to get a couple of advisors, but I really do stress it. If you can get some help to work on your business in those early days, which I didn't, it'll make such a difference to you. And there's expertise out there. You don't necessarily need to go and spend loads of money on it, but just seek these people out, find what their content is, figure out where the holes are that you're doing right now. Otherwise, you'll create a job for yourself and not a business. And there's a fine line, you don't have to have a scalable business, but also you don't want to be doing every administration task and every little thing in your business. So you just don't have time to work on how you can get more out of it all. And, there's experts out there that'll be able to put you in good stead on how to do that. We'll probably be releasing our own course later in the year on how to automate your business, whether that's from a social selling perspective and from hiring virtual assistants and, breaking down your workflows and doing all of that. But yeah, look, if it's like basic recruitment stuff on how to build, how to do it in a sensible manner, then, you really should look at best practice. Like, figure out those 3 suppliers that we mentioned that are, reputable and do a good job. And if they'll take you on as a client, and you're going to grow, you're going to thank them in the long run, like we had Say from Digital Gurus on. And, he said it just changed his life, getting an advisor in an early stage. So anyway, learn from my mistakes and from the success of our guests. That's what I would say if I'm going to give any parting shots on this podcast. So thank you so much for listening. We have just hit 50,000 downloads, which is amazing, which I'm just blown away by. So now the next big target is, how can we double that? How can we get to 100,000? And hopefully by adding video and a YouTube channel and maybe some Facebook ads and Instagram ads and learning that and putting in some of those Gary V principles, we can get there and figure out a better way to do recruitment. That's the ultimate goal here. So thanks so much again, guys. And we will be back either later today or tomorrow with another fantastic guest.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.